Origin Chess, and this is The Panther Paradox by channel Lazerpig. I guess this is about Panther tanks. I'm guessing that's what Lazerpig thing is. I'm pretty sure I saw there's a video about T14, which I haven't seen, right? And obviously I saw the video about F35 from Lazerpig, which is like great. So I'm guessing Lazerpig is one of those people who covers like military type of things. In a world where entire wars are decided on how sloped your tank's armor is, live a group of people who define themselves experts on again. So he's all videos about the so-called experts, which is I like, because that's like age of bullshit, right? That people do address it, but not at this level. So I'm guessing, of course, that's going to be the case with the highest level, with the military and obviously in politics as well. Experts based on what? Because I say so. I wrote a book about it, so I must be an expert. I guess that's what Lazerpig is thing is like, dissecting all these things. All right. Let's wait on. Remember, if you like my Rickson, don't forget to subscribe. That way I know which type of videos to react to more, and that way you'll be helping this channel by helping the algorithm and things. And yeah, let's wait on.
So once upon a time, thousands of years ago on the internet, there lived the Tiger Scale, which was a way of judging people's tank knowledge based on their favourite tank design. And all who knew of the scale thought it knowledge.
Tier 1, the basic bitch. Okay. Tier 2, I'll read a history book, hobby, history and choice. Says Stug Life, unironically. Okay. The true Chad, smug. Well, actually. Okay, that's what the tier scale is talking about. Tier scale.
Based on their favourite tank design. And all who knew of the scale thought it good. For if you asked someone what their favourite tank was, they were obviously going to pick a World War II German tank. I mean, why would you pick any other? Stop looking over there! Anyway, thus the Tiger Scale ruled in peace, and there was much rejoicing.
Tiger scale.
But then one day this clammy little fucker came along and said his favourite tank was the Turin. And 1,000 nerds angrily rushed to their computers, for no one had even heard of this obscure vehicle, and even worst of all, it was Hungarian.
Hungarian? We talked about Germans here, we talked about Americans. Hungarian? What is even that? But that's the whole thing about, right? Like, but especially talking about something that nobody has ever heard of and claiming that's the best one ever, because I know you never even heard of this shit, and just like, standing the smug. That is the whole thing. Well, actually,
program, they retorted. They never built any. But they did. The answer came, and so was produced fact sheets and data and reels upon reels of information that did indeed prove that this heretic, who dared not pick a German vehicle, was being honest. His favourite tank really was the Turin. Calamity ensued.
What? Hungarian tank is actually good. What? Seriously, man, like, I'm surprised nobody just like, every time somebody said, oh, this German tank was the best, I'm surprised people are not saying, oh, what a basic. Of course you're going to pick just German tank because that's the easy thing.
How can we judge people on the knowledge of tanks if it not for the Tiger Scale? And so a schism broke out. One side proclaimed knowledge of tanks outside the common ones showed a deeper understanding of tank lore and should be placed in a higher tier, and thousands of people chose obscure, weird little tanks as their favourite tanks just to show that they knew more than everybody else. And the other side proclaimed heresy, for what does not fit on the scale does not belong, and those who are picking a different tank that is not on the Tiger Scale are just trying to show off and be fancy, and therefore should be cast out of society. But then, from nowhere, a new faction arose. Emerging from the mud and grime came a whole new way of thinking, and many bowed before its majestic light. It was called the Panther Paradox. But what is the Panther Paradox? What am I asking you for? What would you know? I mean, to explain the paradox,
is
we
he
must
drunk?
First look at its predecessor, the Tiger Scale. I mean, as you've probably already guessed,
Okay, why is he saying predecessor tiger scale? He's saying tiger scale, right? Isn't tiger like came after the panther? Panzer 5 or Panzerwaffe or whatever the German name is. Panzers basically. The 5th Panzer Mark 5 whatever is the panther, and Mark 6 is tiger, right? And tiger was just like more better version of panther. As soon as I said that, some people just went insane. Better as in like more heavy hitter version of it, right? It's just like specialized version. Not many were made, but it was just like more armored, heavy cannon and everything. I'm pretty sure that's the case, right? I'm not getting that wrong. No, that is right. Tiger 1. And also, I'm pretty sure there was also Tiger 2 or something, right? But yeah, but Panther is like more nimble version of it. It was like more of them, and it was cheaper than Tiger.
Yes, this is a pretty elitist gatekeeping piece of nonsense where the great elders of tank knowledge would judge your knowledge based entirely on which World War II German tank was your favourite. The scale goes as follows. Tier 1, lowest tier, was the Tiger tank. Popularised by hero booze, its effectiveness on the battlefield is one shrouded in myth and legend. And if you pick the Tiger, the myths and legend are probably all you know. Tier 2 is the Panther. Better in almost every way to the Tiger. It proves that you've at least done your homework, but you're still a bit of a dick. Tier 3 is...
How? What? Panther is better because obviously it's cheap. It's better to maneuver and everything. But given their job, first of all, what is better, right? Like people say that a lot. Like, is F-16 better than F-15? Don't they have different jobs, right? Tiger had its own job, right? Okay, it had flaws, but then again, every German things, like over-engineer things, had somewhat flaws. Yeah, Panther was good in that way, it was more effective. I don't know.
Is the Stug, or sometimes the Hetzer. Typical fan favorites means you've probably been around, and you base your opinion on what the herd tells you. Tier 4, a rare honour, would be granted only if you stated the Panzer III or 4. Statistically the most effective German tanks in World War II, a fact you'll happily mention in every damn conversation you...
I guess that's true because there were like more of them, so it's like more effective. At this point, it's just like, it's not about like who's like pound for pound, but it's just like who was like historically more effective. And obviously like whoever was like cheaper and just there probably was just better. In that way, isn't Sherman better? I don't know.
Have. And if you say the Abrams, you were probably just an American fresh out of boot camp and didn't know the names of any other tanks. Now, the intelligent among you may immediately see the problem with proving your level of expertise based on your favourite tank. It's complete bollocks. I mean, many who were aware of this test would just say their favourite tank was the Panzer III, just to appease the Elder Gods, and then furiously defend this tank on internet forums as if their life depended on it, which, if your entire life revolves around discussing armour on web forums, and it kinda does. I used to piss them off by telling them my favourite tank was the Char 2C. I'm not welcome on a lot of forums, I will admit this. Thankfully, we've...
Char 2C. Is that the French one? Right? That's the French one, right?
matured a bit since then, and the scale has fallen out of use, save for in those most obscure niche communities hidden deep within the deep, dark, deepy, dippy, darky swampies of the internet. I'm looking at you, r/tank porn. You know what they did. So what is the Panther... Oh, no, wait, I've already asked that question. The Panther Paradox. This is where things get technical. So strap yourselves in, because I'm only going to say this once in this video. I'm a historian, so I repeat myself. I'm sorry, okay? Alright, you shits. You see, the typical attributes of a tank are divided into 3 sections. Armor,
What the fuck?
speed, and firepower. And the idea being to make a good tank, you must strike a balance between all 3 attributes, not sacrificing one for the other, or the other. And this is...
Again, I might not agree because depends, right? Everything has an asterisk on top. Like which field are you talking about? Which type of battle you're talking about? tanks will be different. Like, I guess just pound for pound in a tank way, he's probably right. But even then, I guess you have to dissect it more. Like, okay, all these three things are important. But what if one of those three is one of the point of the three was really powerful and somehow he proved effective on the field, even though other 2 points were like shitty for that tank. But just that 1 point was so good and apparently turned out to be effective, that was too good. It's like really hard to quantify. But basically, yeah, all these 3 points, if you balance it, that's the best tank, I guess. Who knows?
Where the Panther comes in, argued as one of the best German tanks of the Second World War by idiots. It is better than the Tiger in almost every conceivable way. That anti-tank gun is one of the best 75mm of the war. It's faster, it has better sights, it costs less to manufacture, and its armor puts it in the spec class of a heavy tank while remaining a solid medium. Heavy enough to deal with enemy tanks, while remaining
guessing a
light
bot
enough
is coming.
to cross bridges. Most bridges, anyway. Based on those attributes alone, the tank should have been a winner, and Germany built them in the thousands. The Allies were encountering them all across both fronts from 1944 onwards, and the British SOE had almost no intelligence on the vehicle whatsoever. It could rip any Allied tank in half, while even the most powerful Allied guns, of which not many were mounted into tanks, would struggle to break the Panther's frontal armour. The tank should have been a war winner. It should have been able to easily win any battle and sown panic among the Allied lines, but it didn't. In fact, statistically, this is one of the worst tanks Germany ever built and contributed heavily to their rapid defeat. This is the paradox. You see, if you only had a base knowledge of military...
Let me guess. He's going to talk about the paradox. Like, even though it has like all the points, all the 3 points, it sucked. Like I said, if that's the case, then like what I said is the point, right? I don't know how else to say this. Like, it depends on the battlefield. Like, you can say like all these 3 things are important, but only when you test it out, you would know that what is like more important of the 3, or if the all equal 3 is important. Because if the all 3 are balanced, maybe you just have a fucking average tank, right? Like, what gives you an edge? What gives you an X factor? If that's the case, then yeah.
Vehicles, and we're trying to pass yourself off as a historian like a lot of people I know, the effectiveness of this vehicle breeds a certain level of confusion, and so they typically resort to one-line explanations that absolve the Panther of blame. Only the early models were unreliable, the crews were not trained, they were never used effectively, they didn't build enough of the later models where all the problems had been solved, as by then it was too late. Saying any of these and get you knocked back down to tier 1. So let Daddy Lazerpig explain. Speed, armor, and firepower are what we call hard factors, something you can put on a top trumps trade card. But for every one of these, there's also a vast number of soft factors. How fast can you reload the gun? How much ammo can you carry? Can it be used in bad weather? What are the sights like? How quickly can you replace a damaged wheel? How expensive it is to build, etc., 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 etc. And where the Panther fails are in these soft factors. The unreliability was a problem of its core design. It was never fixed. The suspension was terrible. The engine was overstressed and would stall during combat. It also needed to be turned over and ran for at least an hour before the tank could be used. The turret traverse was slow. The gunner sights were permanently zoomed in, making it hard for him to find the target. The hatches were stiff and difficult to open and would jam if the tank was too hot. The side armor was paper thin. Mud would gather between the wheels, causing them to stick. The sound of the hull gun being fired was enough to deafen the crew. And there was no way to see behind you without opening the commander's hatch. And then there was the reliability. That high production number was because German factories...
Yep, I guess the soft points that he's talking about. This applies to everything in today's world. That applies to like cars and bikes as well. People just put a stats like, okay, this is the bike. It goes to 9,000 RPM. It produces this much horsepower. But what about 8,000 RPM? What about 10,000 RPM? How does it perform there? How is the power curve is flat or not? A lot of shit like that. So this applies to a lot of things today, not just tank. But yeah, I guess it makes sense. But I still believe that if, getting all 3 points like balance is not the way to go. It would feel like it might give you an average tank. But then again, like everything's useful based on how you use it, right? To me, it feels like Tiger was really powerful simply because it was way too OP. Right? People like the whole movie, which is like Fury. I think that's the movie is based on that, right? Brad Pitt movie. The whole thing, like Shermans were actually panicking, right, just to attack it. And eventually they found the problem, solution to that with the Sherman tanks. But the whole thing was that whoever was like had the Tigers, the armor was so thick, the people that was inside the tank were not afraid, and that changes a lot of things, like how you're gonna approach things, how you're gonna confront things, right? Like, if you're not taking chances, what's the point of your fucking tank in the first place? Tigers can do that. And worse than all, Tigers' range was so high, they were just like sniping from the fucking distance. They actually were panicking, like, where the fuck is the tiger? It was hidden somewhere, like with some bushes and things. So I would argue Tiger was so OP because of that. Now you can say all this like pound per pound, like it's like a boxer or something. Pound per pound, who's better? Is it Panther? Is it that? But in the end, like on the field, war was like a really intense thing. What made somebody piss their pants, right? I would say it's definitely the Tiger, right? I mean, in the end, you could say like, but Germans were defeated, Tiger was defeated. So how is the best? But that's like, you're not really seeing the point. Like, of course they were defeated, right? But the Tiger was actually like, made everybody go to the edge of their seat, right? They had to come up with shit just to defeat it, right? And yeah, Panther probably had more success because it was on the field more. There were many of them. They were defeated a lot, but they also won a lot because there were more of them, and there weren't that many of Tigers.
Factories were not making enough spare parts, so if your Panther broke down, and it would, if there wasn't another Panther nearby you could cannibalize for parts, you'd be forced to leave it behind. All of these combined to make the Panther tank a mobile death trap. But if you didn't know about these soft factors, you could continue through life believing the Panther to be perfect, and end up wasting your evenings on military hardware forums, trying to argue that if Hitler had more Panthers, we'd all be speaking German, blah blah blah, insert argument Panther 2.
Hitler had millions of Panther, won't matter for shit. The problem was the resources, oil and things, right? And even then, like, taking on the world was always a failure. It would just mean like how much devastation there would be before the end comes. Panther 2 was never built as an improvement to the Panther design, but rather a way to cheapen the cost of the King Tiger. That's Tiger 2, right? King Tiger. Tank by standardizing production using as many components from the original Tiger tank as possible. Production of a single test prototype was started but never finished. The project was cancelled, recycled into E50 project.
Now, see, this is something the French learned after the war. In an effort to rebuild their army, they went around picking up every one of the many Panther tanks scattered around their country, building spare parts for them, fixing them up, and putting them into service, and found out very quickly that the tanks were not all they'd been hyped up to be, and that extensive modernization was required, by which point it was easier for them just to make their own newer, much better tanks. It's also why tanks like the Sherman, or even a lot of British tanks, did so well, despite it being comically underwhelming in many of the hard factors. Where these tanks excel is the soft factors, typically enjoying better sights, better reliability, more comfortable rides, as well as just simply being easier to maintain or not being limited to certain weather.
I think Sherman was better because anything apart from Tiger was prone to get damaged. So you're going to be fucked if you're attacked, right? Like, what was the video that shows, like, if a shell hits a tank and it's penetrated, like, all the shell will basically kill anything that's inside of it. So Panther's going to be the same way. If you get hit with a heavy round, Panther, you're fucked, right? Sherman is even weaker, same thing, but at least it's like more nimble, right? It's like, I think, it should be extreme in either way. If you're going to have a weak armor, might as well be like weakest and be more nimble and better in some other regards, right? And if you're going to have strong armor, might as well have like that can repel shells like Tiger. If you're average on all aspect, like all-rounder or something, you're going to be average, right? I mean, not average is like obviously the technical, but you're going to be meh at best.
Other types or types of terrain, and such things confuse an amateur because you've no tiny gun. How can work? As I said in the Bradley Wars, decades of badly researched historical documentaries, books, and films have popularized the myth of Nazi German technological superiority over the Allies. Overwhelming numbers led to Germany's defeat, many proclaim, and if only they had built more insert weapon of choice here, they would have won. Truth of the matter is tank design is a hell of a lot more complicated than big engine, big gun, lots of armor. In short, the Panther is kind of like a Lamborghini. Impressive, stylish, and something that leaks an image of absolute authority and power. But there's only so much it can do for you if you have a tiny penis. And for years, those tiny, willy, drooling vegetables have been tearing up the internet, desperate to convince us all that no such paradox exists, and that tanks like the Panther sent the benchmark for all armored vehicles to come after it. In those dark, early days, those of us who knew the truth were ostracized and typically met in secret. Thankfully, in 2010, World of Tanks, who proudly did not sponsor this video, gave tanker fans the chance to finally play their favorite tanks, and boy did that not go well for them. As many seasoned players of that game will tell you, a lot of players rush to get the Tiger and then rush in thinking their mighty German steel armor will protect them. And it doesn't. So they end up screaming and crying and claiming Russian bias or that the game isn't realistic and blah, 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 blah. And they're wrong. War Thunder is the game with the Russian bias. You know, considering they're actively funding pro-Russian terrorist groups in Ukraine. But anyway, that's for a different video.
What the fuck?
And that is the story of the first
What the fuck was
Thanksgiving.
that?
The end.
What the fuck was that with the War Thunder and everything? What was that? What was that rant about? Is that true? Yeah, man. Man, I love Lazerpig, man. It's so good. Yeah, okay. First of all, if somebody said like this is the best tank of World War II, the end, like just saying like who's the best is just weird. It's like going to basically a American football match and saying who's the best player of the team. It's like the team matters, right? You can say quarterback and things, but yeah, the team matters, not just... So it depends on which terrain, which environment, right? I guess it also boils down to if it's reliable or not, but that's just like... our German tanks are not reliable. That just makes me question things. But yeah, there you go. Panther wasn't reliable in the first place. That was just weird. Yeah, I would just say Tiger, just because of it's a fact. Psychological warfare is really important, and nobody had the psychological warfare as Tiger did, regardless of what, right? Tiger made people, piss their pants. Probably millions of meetings probably took in place just to think how are we gonna take down Tiger, right? Shermans and everybody just like panicking, modifying shit just to take it down and all that crap. But yeah. However, that was the Panther Paradox by channel Lazerpig. If you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Probably T14 video, right? That's the video. Like I'm pretty sure my comment section was bombarded long ago. React to T14 video, T14 video Lazerpig. I guess I'm gonna do that. Alright, I'll see you next time.